today, people really don't go to websites anymore. It's not really a thing. People actually don't even Google things. These platforms, these gigantic companies are holding the steering wheel. You're just logging in and boom, here's a whole bunch of stuff they think you should see. For the most part, people are a lot more interested in having a passive experience in which they can just open a thing and be served a thing. Kids are allowed to have their phones in schools. Why would they pay attention to teachers if now you're allowed to have the most distracting thing that human beings have ever developed? Hey, welcome to The Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. I am Kevin Lieber, and I will have something to talk to you about. It is Technology Connections' recent video about algorithms are breaking how we think. This came up actually in my Destin Sandlin from Smarter Every Day posted about how much he liked this video. And at that point, I was like, okay, now I need to watch this thing. So I watched it. It's a pretty long video. It's thoughtful. It's 37 minutes long. So if you haven't seen it, I'll repeat the title again. It's called Algorithms Are Breaking How We Think, and it's from Technology Connections, who is a friend of TCU. We've had him on the podcast. I actually did a collaboration with him last year on popular science. So, I wanted to do a video on the RCA Selectivision, and he is the authority, as far as I'm concerned, on that device. So I actually reached out to him to have him explain how the technology actually worked. Because I thought, who better, why should I explain how this works when we have the guy to explain how Selectivision worked? So yeah, if you watch that video, you will see Alec make a little cameo appearance. So suffice to say, I'm a big fan of Technology Connections. I'm a big fan of Alec. One of the things I thought was really funny and kind of serendipitous about this topic is, last week I talked about how most people aren't really interested in learning how things work. That was my hypothesis last week. That was, I hopefully did a decent job supporting with my different arguments. But yeah, in my opinion and in my experience, there's a pretty small percentage of the general population who actually has an interest, like let alone a passion, but even like a small interest in understanding how anything works, whether it's a mirror. That was what kicked off last week's podcast, was the viral video of the woman holding the towel in front of the mirror and everyone being befuddled by how it could possibly know she was there, to something like Selectivision. Like, how does this stuff work? Well, Technology Connections is a fantastic YouTube channel. It's been going on for years that is all about how things work. I mean, that's certainly my favorite channel when it comes to learning how everything from dishwashers to Christmas lights actually do work, should work, could work. He explores like really all angles of all of this stuff. And to me, I love it. It's fascinating. But the most recent video that I wanted to talk about here is about algorithms. And he creates this phrase called algorithmic complacency. Okay, so what is algorithmic complacency? The crux of his argument has to do with how people interact with the internet today as opposed to, 20 years ago. So back in the old days of the internet, he discusses in the video that it was very like user generated as far as having to find things. Like you were really on your own as far as finding a website or a community or how something works or whatever. Like you had to do the hard work, of searching for a thing, bookmarking a website so you can refer to it later. And, you create your own little bookmark list of sites that you want to remember. But it was really on you as the user to go onto the internet and explore as an internet explorer, explore the internet and kind of dig up things that are useful, things that you like, things that you want to return to, and sort of make it your own in that way. Whereas today, first of all, people really don't go to websites anymore. It's not really a thing. People actually don't even Google things anymore, which is sort of its own topic and an interesting one, I think, at that is that, from what I understand, I've read some things over the past couple of months about how like Google itself, as a search engine is just way down. It's just not really a thing people go to the internet to use as much as they used to because they kind of don't have to. So the reason that they don't have to is because instead they can just go to a small handful of hyper popular platforms like Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or X or TikTok or Instagram. There's like roughly 5 or 6 platforms that essentially garner all of the traffic at this point. And on top of that, the way that they work is by feeding you things directly so that you don't really have to go out of your way to search for things. Instead, you are being served content. You're being served information just by opening it. Just by having a profile and by using the app and interacting with it, liking things, subscribing to some things, following some things. And now all of a sudden you have this algorithm that has become your interface with the internet. And throughout his video, he details how he sees this as a problem. And I'm not here to do a podcast about how I disagree with him because I don't. I think all of the points that he makes in the video are valid, as far as it robbing people of really the agency of like learning how to go and find things or save things or sift through things that might be crappy and find things that are good and really go through like a cognitive journey when it comes to using the internet, finding information and just getting what you're looking for. Whereas now, that for the most part has been, taken out of your hands. You're not really you're not holding the steering wheel anymore. These platforms, these gigantic companies are holding the steering wheel. You're just logging in, you're just opening up the app and boom, like here's a whole bunch of stuff that they think you should see, right? So it's a really different process than you going out and deciding what you should see or finding things that you want to see. Instead, it's them driving up to your house with stuff and you're looking at it. So obviously there are concerns about, well, now they have all the control over what you're seeing and what you're not seeing. And there's this idea of this algorithmic complacency where now, people aren't even learning how to look for things. Because why would you? One of the things that he brought up as part of this argument that I have known about for years, especially, when I was talking to people at YouTube a long time ago, has to do with subscriptions on YouTube. So it's been a really long time at this point that subscriptions really mattered on YouTube. And if you're in like YouTuber circles at all, you've known this for a while, but I think it's an important thing to bring up why subscriptions don't matter on YouTube. Because Technology Connections talks about how the way YouTube works, obviously, is you have your home feed, whether you're on the app or you're on desktop, you have this home feed of stuff that's like a mishmash of what YouTube thinks you want to watch. But you do also still have the ability to look at your subscriptions feed. The subscriptions feed is a button right at the top of the navigation bar on desktop, and it's one of like 4 buttons at the bottom of the app. So you can go to your subscriptions feed, bypass what they're trying to show you, what they think you want to watch, and you can just watch, a chronologically ordered list of the things that you have decided you want to see, right? The problem is nobody uses it. Nobody uses it today, and they haven't used it for a long time. Like I said, I don't even remember how many freaking years ago it was that, I mean, there were all these arguments a long time ago about how, people aren't seeing my videos. They're not getting served my videos. People are leaving comments that they forgot about my channel because they're not seeing my videos. Why aren't my subscribers getting my videos? This is a discussion I don't even know. 8 years ago, we'll just say. And the answer from the engineers at YouTube was really simple. And it's that because the majority of people don't go to their subscription tab. They don't watch the things that they subscribe to. What they would rather do is they would rather be served a collection of videos that YouTube thinks that they want to watch. They're just more likely to click on those than they are to click on the latest video from a thing that they subscribe to. Maybe they subscribed to it years ago and they're not into it anymore, but they don't want to unsubscribe. I mean, there's a myriad of reasons why people don't click on it, but it kind of doesn't matter why they don't click on it. What matters to YouTube is they're not clicking on it. So what are they going to click on? How are we going to get people to stay on the website? Well, what we'll do instead is we'll use the signals that the user gives to us by liking certain videos, by watching certain videos, whatever, and we'll just show them more videos that are like the ones they've been watching, not necessarily from people that they've subscribed to. So this is an example. So this is what generates the algorithmic complacency. My feedback on it, and this isn't an argument against him, this is just me hopefully adding some color to the discussion, is that first of all, there are many genies that have escaped from bottles in the last 15 years or so that aren't going back. Okay, what does that mean? One of the genies that has escaped the bottle is just the addiction to phones in general, right? Like that's the thing that's not getting put away. That like everybody is obsessed with their phone, and the downstream effects of that you can see in like diminished interest in things like music and gaming and books. We've talked about that on the podcast. Like there are measurable drops in like a lot of different activities because what people choose to do instead is scroll their phone. It's just a lot more entertaining and compelling and addicting to scroll TikTok or X or whatever, Instagram, and interact with people than it is to play the saxophone or even become like, obsessed with a certain band. So that genie's not going back in the bottle. This algorithmic complacency thing, or really the catalyst for that, which is how people interact with the internet, is another one that's just not going back in the bottle. Why? Why is this not going back in the bottle? Because people like it better. Like it's not really a lot more complicated like that than that. It's people have decided, en masse that they would rather interact with the internet this way. They would rather just open up an app and have a bunch of stuff that is related to their interests served to them than they would open up a web browser and, go to Google or go to Lycos, go to Ask Jeeves and type in some prompts and then go digging around like an archaeologist to find stuff through, like rote effort. It's just, that's not going to change. We're not going to go back to that. Like that, it's over. When I was thinking about this, I was trying to think of an analogy for it. And the analogy that I came up with, I don't know if this is a good analogy or not. So, you can decide whether or not this is on task. But I was thinking about a restaurant where you go to a restaurant, say it's a diner, right? If you've ever been to like a Greek diner, they have everything. Like there are diners on this planet. I don't know if you've been to one. I'm not talking about like Denny's. I'm talking about like a mom and pop, like Greek diner where the menus are like 25 pages. It's like a book. It's insane. You sit down and they plunk down this like 4-pound menu in front of you and you just flip through like page after page of like every food you can possibly imagine, from like soups and salads to like steaks and seafood to like Mexican and Italian. And they just have like everything you can think of. I have a whole page of just different types of burgers, whatever it is. So say you sit down at this restaurant. It's a 25-page menu. Okay. And you go in and you circle, I don't know, 15 different things that you really like. It's a cheeseburger. You circle New England clam chowder. You circle cheese quesadilla. You circle chicken tenders. You tell them, think of this as subscribing to a YouTube channel. Stay with me. So you tell them, here are, out of your, 200 offerings at this diner, I'm going to give you 15 things that I really like. So you could go back to that restaurant and just eat one of those 15 things, right? They'll just give you one of those 15 things. Or what if you went back to the restaurant and they gave you a one-page menu that was brand new food items based upon the things that you like? So rather than just eating the same cheeseburger and French fries, well, this week we have like a bacon blue cheeseburger with caramelized onions and a side of curly fries. What do you think of that? You want to eat that today? Oh, actually, I do. No, I didn't think of that, but that sounds absolutely delicious. Or you say you like, well, I like burritos and I also like sushi. And the magical restaurant menu says, oh, you like burritos and sushi? Why don't you try a spicy tuna hand roll? It's kind of like the best of both worlds of sushi and a burrito, wrapped in this nice little seaweed wrapper. You can eat it with your hand. Delicious. That to me is the difference between going in and having to like manually choose from a huge array of choices, or having the restaurant know what you like and then offer you items that you didn't think of. I mean, in my opinion, I think in my restaurant analogy, that's obviously better. That is an obviously better experience if, you sit down and the chef knows what you like and then comes up with some great food item that's not, might not even be on the menu. Hey, try this out instead. This is the reason why people like the algorithm complacency thing better. I mean, this is why, because it just is objectively a better experience. Like, people would way rather just sit down and have the platform show them things that they think that they'll like, rather than having to go and search for it. I think it's a very small percentage of people that would rather have it the other way. Now, the ideal world is, something that he mentioned in the video was he was talking about how Blue Sky has the option to see a feed that's a chronological list of the people that you follow. And then there's another feed that's like an algorithmically based For You page or something like that. And that definitely makes sense. I mean, there are some platforms that I think do the algorithm thing really poorly. Facebook being the major culprit in my estimation. Like, I think Facebook is unusably bad. Unusably bad. There are probably a lot of reasons for that, but I don't even use that freaking platform at all because it's so bad. But my point is, with the problem that the video is based upon about algorithms breaking how we think, I don't know what we do about it, because we've gotten to this point because the platforms have gotten popular by optimizing how they keep people on the platform. That doesn't mean it's a good thing overall, but it's the way people prefer to interact with it. So it's kind of like, well, what are you going to do about that? The other thing that I wanted to get into thinking a lot, because I don't know how I'm tying this together, when I was thinking about it all this week, how I thought in my head I was tying this together. But my topic last week had to do with how people in general don't really like learning how things work. Okay. That was the crux of last week's podcast, which I think is true. I don't know what the percentage is. I don't know if 80% of people don't want to know how things work and 20% do. I don't know what it is, but it certainly seems like a majority to me. I think another problem is that we really don't understand the limitations of how people think in general. Okay. Like, how do I even want to get into this discussion? For a long time, well, I guess the way that I was connecting it in my head is like, I am not convinced what percentage of people even liked going on the internet and like looking around for things. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. I would love to see some data on like what, because the data would get muddy in terms of availability. Like the availability is so much more wide scale now. So you'd have to control for that. I just wonder like what percentage of people who had access, who had internet access, how much time they spent on the internet when it was the way that Alec was talking about, when it was really up to you to find things that you were interested in. You know, I'm sure he was one of the people who did. I was definitely one of the people that did. As soon as we got the internet when I was in high school, I was on it all the time because I just found it like endlessly exciting and interesting and compelling to search around for things and find things and read about things. But I don't think a lot of people are that way. Like, I don't think their brains really work that way, or their interests, it's probably better to say, align with that type of behavior. Okay. I think for the most part, people aren't at all interested in doing that. I think for the most part, people are a lot more interested in having a passive experience in which they can just open a thing and be served a thing. So that's part of the question to me about even like broaching this as a problem is it's almost like it caused a problem in a place where people weren't even engaged with before. So I have long been obsessed with thinking. If you listen to this podcast and you never watched Vsauce 2, Vsauce 2 for years, like kind of regardless of the topic, it almost always in some capacity comes back to human behavior and thinking. Certainly all the paradox videos were directly about thinking, and the math game videos are about, problem solving and thinking. One of the things that I really wanted to make a video about, and I just couldn't find any supportive data on, or like any supportive study on whatsoever, because it might not exist, has to do with the fact that I think a lot of people are limited in their capacity to conceptualize things because of what I call coin flip thinking. Okay. What is coin flip thinking? Well, this was a thought that I developed, over the years, making all of these videos about probability, because I noticed in comments on all different platforms over and over and over again from so many different people that it was really obvious that they didn't grasp probability at all. Like they literally didn't understand what probability was. And there was actually a tweet that went viral recently. And now that I've said it, you're going to see this. You will notice it as well, is that you'll see a lot of tweets or comments or whatever, or memes going viral about how everything is 50-50. Like the chances of anything at all happening are 50-50 because it either happens or it doesn't happen. So because it either happens or it doesn't happen, therefore, ergo, the chances of it happening are 50-50. Okay. And now I saw this comment on any video I ever made, which was a lot about probability. People would be arguing that my math was wrong because the reality was the chances of it happening were 50-50. Okay. That is definitely wrong, first of all, because that's not how probability works. What these people are doing is they are confusing the probability of something happening with the possible outcomes. Okay. So just because something only has two potential outcomes does not mean that the probability of one of the outcomes is reduced to what the two outcomes could be. Like that's not how it works. That it's just not what probability is. Probability is the chance of the thing happening, not the result, not the potential results. So I will give an example that I think would be really easy to understand, which is free throws in basketball. Okay. Free throws in basketball. If you are a great free throw shooter, say you're Steph Curry, you are excellent at shooting free throws. Your Steph Curry's, I don't know what his free throw percentage is. I'm going to guess on the low end, it's 90%. It's probably higher than that. But let's say that Steph Curry's free throw percentage is 90%. Okay. Every time he shoots a free throw, you can say, and people do argue that it's a 50-50 chance whether or not he makes it, because the ball either goes through the hoop or it doesn't. Okay. Which is wrong. If his free throw percentage is 90%, that means every time he shoots, there's a 90% chance that he's going to make it. Because if he were to shoot 10 free throws, 9 of them will go in. He will miss 1 out of 10 free throws because he's a 90% free throw shooter. So every time he shoots a free throw, just because the result is either he makes it or he misses it, does not mean the probability of him making it or the probability of him missing it is 50-50. Like, that's not what probability is. So I do not know whether this is like a poor schooling problem. Like, if just someone hasn't explained to these people what probability is, that's possible. Or if it's actually a cognitive deficiency. I don't know the answer to that. I have no idea whether this is a thing that people just haven't been taught properly, or if it's a thing they cannot understand, okay? Because it's just too high level of a concept to think in probabilistic terms. I don't know the answer to that. And I couldn't make any headway. And it's also like, it's a really hard topic to discuss, let alone make a YouTube video about, because, I mean, either way, it's like not a great thing to discuss, because you're either talking about how like some people are, incapable of like wrapping their heads around probabilistic thinking and they never will. That's a rough discussion, or you're just saying that, well, the education system is so bad that, kids aren't learning what probability is or how to think probabilistically. And now all of these people are running around thinking that everything is 50-50, which I call coin flip thinking. Everybody has these coin flip brains, which makes it really hard. Like, if you are unable to think probabilistically, you're going to have a really hard time discerning nuance in anything. Because if everything is just binary, it's either a 1 or a 0, either good or bad. You either make the shot or you miss it. If everything is just binary, and you really can't analyze anything with that kind of thought process. You're only going to come up with one of two, extreme positions. You're not digging into any of the actual reality, which is all existing in the margins and, in the gray area between the 1 and the 0. And, even very, very intelligent people have a problem with this because of the Monty Hall problem. The really smart people don't understand the Monty Hall problem. So this is why this is a really confusing problem to me. Not the Monty Hall problem, but like this probabilistic thinking problem to me is really confusing, and I can't make a whole lot of headway on it because I don't understand why it happens, or like where to even begin figuring it out. Because the Monty Hall problem, as far as I'm concerned, is not that complicated, and it absolutely breaks the brains of people who, are otherwise really smart. And one of the reasons that I think it breaks people's brains, here's another one of my theories on this coin flip topic, is that I think one of the reasons it breaks people's brains is because it involves 3 doors. So it's not it's not a coin flip anymore. Just introducing a 3rd door makes people's brains go haywire, because it's just for some reason really freaking hard all of a sudden to add a 3rd thing into the mix and think about the probability of it occurring. Because if it was just 2, it would be so easy. And that's what people reduce it to. They reduce the 3rd door back to a 2-door problem and they say it's 50-50 at the end. But it's not. Okay, so the Monty Hall, if people, aren't familiar with the Monty Hall problem, I will try to sum it up really quickly. So it's a game show, okay? And there are 3 doors, and you are the contestant, and there's a game show host, okay? And you, as the contestant, are asked to choose one of the doors, okay? And there are different prizes behind these 3 different doors. So behind one door is $1 million. Behind another door is a goat. And behind another door is a toaster. Okay. It doesn't really matter. There are 3 different prizes behind the 3 different doors. And you're asked to choose one of them. Okay. So you choose one of the doors. Now, what happens next is that the host of the game show, who knows what is behind each door, because he's the host, he knows where the prizes are. The host opens one of the doors and is going to show you one of the prizes. So the really critical thing to the Monty Hall problem is understanding that the host is never going to open the door with the $1 million because it would ruin the game. There's no more tension. The game is over. If he opens the door with the $1 million, then it's not interesting anymore. So the host will never open the door with the $1 million. Okay. You have to remember that. But he's going to open one of the other 2 doors. So say he opens the door with the toaster. So now you have 2 closed doors, the one that you chose, one that you didn't choose, and then an open door that has a toaster. So since the 3 doors had $1 million, a goat, or a toaster, and now you know where the toaster is, then the 2 doors left have the $1 million or the goat. Okay. So here's the part that breaks everybody's brain. Now that the host has revealed one of the prizes to you, that's not the $1 million. He asks if you want to stick with your original choice of the door that you chose to begin with when there were 3 closed doors, or do you want to switch to the other closed door? You have the choice. Stick with your original door or switch to the other closed door. Now, people who don't understand the Monty Hall paradox, the vertical paradox, most people just call it a problem now because they don't know what vertical paradoxes are. They say it's a 50-50 chance of getting the $1 million at this point because there's only 2 doors left, right? And one of them has the $1 million. So to them, they're saying, obviously, it's 50-50. But this goes back to my Steph Curry free throw thing. Like, just because the 2 available results, just because there are only 2 available results, that does not mean the probability of what you're going to get is 50-50. In the case of the Monty Hall paradox, the probability is now 33% with the door that you chose to begin with, and 66%. I mean, it's really, 33.3 repeating and 66.6 repeating, but whatever. It's 33% with the door that you chose initially, and now it's 66% with the door that you can switch to. Okay, you have twice the chance of getting the $1 million if you switch. It's not 50-50. Why? Because when you first chose, you had a 1 in 3 chance of winning the $1 million, right? There were 3 doors. You didn't know what was behind any of them. So you had a 1 out of 3 choice of getting it right. Well, since the host will never reveal the $1 million, your initial choice was still 1 out of 3. That didn't change because it was originally 1 out of 3. So it's still 1 out of 3. But the other one is now 2 out of 3 because the host opened one of the doors to show you that it didn't have the $1 million in it. Okay. This problem makes people go insane. Like it really screws with people's heads simply because there are 3 options. And I think that that's really a fascinating thing. It's like once you get beyond 2, it's like our brains are just so confused. Like we are meant to understand 2. And once we get beyond that, it's really, really hard. It's really confusing and it's really difficult for people. And like I said, even, the Monty Hall problem, there were like hundreds of PhD, highly credentialed people who wrote in and, disputed the fact that it wasn't 50-50. So this wasn't like, a bunch of uneducated rubes being like, no, that ain't 50-50. It was like people who were actually highly educated and they still couldn't understand it simply because there's like a third option. There's a little, trickery going on with the host opening up one of the doors that isn't the $1 million. And, then people just resort to this 50-50 thing, confusing having 2 potential outcomes with the probability of one of them. Look how long it took me even to just describe that problem. this is not an easy thing to go through. It just isn't. So the point is, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really understand how people think about anything. And I don't think that we do in general. Like I've read and I've made videos about like a lot of different, cognitive fallacies and biases and blah, blah, blah that are definitely true and really interesting. And they have been developed by, some of the smartest thinkers about thinking who ever lived. Like Daniel Kahneman comes to mind, who just passed away, I think, last year. Man, oh man. But as far as being able to like apply that to people, forget it. Forget being able to like understand what people get and what they don't get and why. Holy crap. That is just a seemingly insurmountable task. So anyway, when it comes to going back to the original topic, algorithmic complacency, I will reiterate that, I agree that it's a problem. I think it'll only get way worse as far as like breaking how we think when it comes to AI, because once AI becomes truly ubiquitous, then that's just going to replace thinking writ large. People are just going to use the AI to think for them, make decisions for them, learn for them, whatever. It's going to be, like you're their surrogate brain. And I don't know. I don't know how we prevent that from happening either. In the same way that I don't know how there was any way to prevent the algorithmic complacency. Not only prevent, but circumvent or roll back or do anything about. The only thing on this general topic I can think about that I've heard, gaining steam over the last year are, there are a lot of people talking about banning phones from schools. Okay. Now, I didn't even know that phones were allowed in schools. I mean, I'm 100 years old. Nobody had a smartphone when I was in school. We were all doing our farm chores and churning butter and raising barns and building fences, milking cattle. But apparently that's a thing, is that, kids are allowed to have their phones in schools. And why would they pay attention to teachers if they can just look at their phone? Like, I don't know the ins and outs of this, but I mean, I just thought that was funny considering like we weren't even allowed to wear hats or, chew gum. We weren't even really supposed to like have drinks in class. And then meanwhile, now you're allowed to have the most distracting thing that human beings have ever developed in like a tiny little tablet in your pocket. So anyway, and there's a possibility that that's going to go away, which seems like a pretty obviously smart idea. Now, I had a conversation with a girl last year who was a teacher who quit teaching actually because she was so fed up with how she couldn't get, she just felt like she couldn't teach anything because the kids just wouldn't pay attention at all to anything. And it was pointless to try. Like, well, that seems bad. I mean, and if you follow, any accounts or publications that discuss like teaching scores or not teaching scores, really like outcome scores in terms of math proficiency or, reading proficiency, like all of that stuff is really bad. It's like very grim. There was something that I saw today, where some student is suing their school because they like graduated with honors, but they don't know anything. I don't know that this was just something that I read, tangentially. I don't know the details of it, but yeah, there's like literally a lawsuit from a student who somehow graduated with honors, but like can't understand. But I don't know what like exactly she doesn't know, but she's like claiming that she doesn't actually know how to do anything. But meanwhile was like top of her class. Like that seems bad. So anyway, that's one tiny example of something that I could see happening in the future, which is like banning, phones from classrooms. That will help. But I mean, when it comes to how people interact with each other online, I don't know. I don't know what's going to change that or really what the ramifications will be once people are just asking AI for everything. Because I mean, that's really thinking for you when you just ask AI and it gives you an answer. That's really the next level, I think, of, Alec's idea about algorithmic complacency, AI complacency. Holy cow. That'll be something else. I did want to play I think maybe I accomplished that, but I did want to play like a little bit of devil's advocate to this idea in just the sense that, rather than just agreeing completely, trying to think about why it is the way it is. But I think I did that when I said like, it is the way it is because it's what people prefer. I think that's probably enough for now to say on it. All right. Well, let me know what you guys think of this topic in general, and definitely go to, well, first of all, watch Technology Connections videos to begin with, because they're really entertaining and informative and excellent. But particularly watch Algorithms Are Breaking How We Think if you want to get, his take on what really is his topic. I'm just kind of riffing on my thoughts about it generally and the things I've been thinking about in regards to it over the last few days. So anyway, I'm out of here for this week. Thank you everyone for listening. Thanks to everyone in the Discord for hanging out. Be back next week. Till then, see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week. And the recent support has been amazing. Sidpoke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezer Good, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and the Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Ferry-kun, Jen Mafasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Piddler, Ryan Steer, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Videover. And a tremendous shout-out to our elite baby gang commanders. Atrocious Scuff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot, Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight Vinthos, Yeetus Delitus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, and of course, Trev Stead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer, editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yosua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it, and thanks to Main Gear for powering all our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.